Welcome to the Prison Professors Podcast. We serve people who face challenges with prosecution, sentencing, and prison. My co-founders are Sean Hopwood and Justin Paperny. My name is Michael Santos. We create digital content and our team offers individual consulting services. We also assist agencies that want to improve outcomes. To learn how we can help you, text the word Prison Pro to 44222. Again, text Prison Pro to 44222 and get our free brochure. You can also visit us at prisonprofessors.com or contact Justin at 818-424-2220. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Send confirmation that you reviewed our podcast and we'll send you a free digital book. Stay tuned for a 20 to 30-minute episode of Prison Professors. Welcome to Prison Professors. I am Michael Santos, and I've got to introduce you today to my friend Troy Williams. Now, I met Troy when I was at an event for Root and Rebound, which is a nonprofit designed to help people who are coming out transition into the job market. And Troy was there as a professional, he was the audiovisual man, and I was just so impressed that he learned all of those skills in prison. And we are going to hear about that story today directly from Troy. Why don't we start, Troy, by you telling us a little bit about what brought you into the criminal justice system?
Absolutely. And thank you. I appreciate it, Michael, for even having me on your show. I have a lot of respect for you and your journey as well. And I'm inspired by you and the things that you're doing out here in the community as well, too. So I want to just start off by saying thank you for your work.
That's really kind of you. We're all just one big team here trying to inspire other people who are either going into the system or are serving time right now. They can learn from Troy Williams. Tell us the journey, Troy.
Absolutely. So, I grew up in Los Angeles, Linwood. For people who aren't as familiar, Linwood, Compton, like Watts area. Linwood is kind of smack in between Compton and Watts. And so I grew up, at a time in which, gangs were being Crip was being swept across, Los Angeles, like a wildfire, and either you were with them or you wasn't. And I, because of undue influences, I ended up joining. I can go into that story. I don't know how much of that story you want me to go into, but
I think it's important, Troy, to go into the story because a lot of our listeners might be gang affiliated or they might be sitting inside of a jail right now being gang affiliated, and it's helpful for them to listen to leaders who have successfully transitioned their life from a life of crime into a life of extraordinary success. That's what you are, and I think we need to hear that story from you, not from me. So talk with me about it.
Okay, so it started for me. I was 13 years old, and I was on my way to the store for a loaf of bread and some milk. And when on my way outside the store, a group of guys hit me up, like, where you from? And I'm like, I ain't from nowhere. They like, well, where you live at? Oh, I live over there. Well, you must be from that hood. And I'm like, man, I don't gangbang. They're like, well, you got to fight one of us. And I'm like, okay, we can fight. I ain't never been afraid to fight. There's 4 boys in my family. We've been roughhousing since I can remember. So I ain't never been afraid of a whooping. I ain't never been afraid to fight. So, if you want to fight, we can fight. But as I walk outside the store, I'm seeing that they fixing to jump me, right? And so, I'm 13, but I'm not stupid. So I go back inside the store. Long story short, this older guy walked in. This big Samoan dude I knew walks in. And I tell him what was going on, and he walks me out the store and walks me down. So they don't want to, jump me while he's there. And so we walk down a couple of blocks, and we almost get to my house, and I tell the guy, I'm cool. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I got it from here. I'm just a couple of blocks from home. And as I was walking, I look back, and here come these guys on bikes. Like they're coming, and they're coming after me. Now, I had an opportunity to either run to the police station, which was literally right across the street, or to try to make it to the other side of the park where I knew they wouldn't chase me because their rival gang hung out on the other side of the park. So, obviously, I'm not going to say obviously, but there was not a lot of trust for the police with myself at that age. And in my community, I'm sure a lot of us can understand why or know why, and felt that same way at that young age. And so I tried to make it to the other side of the park. I didn't make it. They jumped me, they stumped me out, they beat me with chains and sticks. And, guess who came to my rescue? It was that rival gang. So next thing I know, all these big muscle-bound dudes, they picking me up, they dusting me off, they caring about what I'm thinking, they caring about what I'm feeling. And, I'm on. I'm mad. We out for revenge. And next thing I know, I'm walking back across to these guys' neighborhood with 30 grown muscle-bound men looking for the guys who jumped me. A week later, I was jumped on. A year later, I was on the run for murder. And that started off my sort of journey into the criminal justice system. I was caught when I was 15, and I spent the ages of 15 to 21 in youth authority. I got out with
Stop for a second right there. 15 to 21 in youth authority. Tell us a little bit about your mindset between those ages of 15 and 21 when you were separated from your family living in youth authority for a murder.
Absolutely. I was in there for second-degree murder, and all I know is that I was away from my family, and I was placed in this environment that was really, really, harsh. It was brutal. I learned how to really fight in prison, right? I became this big muscle-bound, dude. I went in, buff weights and lift, but throughout that time, there was a part of me that knew some things had to change. And I tried to change some things, right? I did the Malcolm X thing. I started, reading the dictionary front to back. I started studying. I started picking up books and just reading a lot of books. So I actually educated myself when I was in prison. I educated myself from an intellectual standpoint. But what I had not did was educate myself from an emotional standpoint. And this is a major difference between where I'm at now and I think where I was at when I came home at 21 from youth authority. That, inside, it's a harsh environment. Anybody who's been in youth authority know, you fighting at the drop of a dime, and you fighting over the way somebody look at you. You fighting over a seat. You fighting over whatever. Everything's a fight. And so you learn, that's the way you learn to cope with your problems on top of all the problems that I had before I came there because I was gangbanging. So I'm dealing with all of that stuff in prison. But when I paroled with the intentions of doing the right thing. I really wanted to get my life together. I knew I was intelligent. I knew I was smart. I played basketball. I'm jumping off the roof. I got a little game. I want to go back to college or go to college. But when I come home, there's this big influence, right? I'm home. Next thing you know, I got, all the homies are pulling at me, right? The women are choosing, I'm being offered, I'm being offered women, all the drugs and treated like a legend.
So while you were in prison, while you were in juvenile hall, you still were affiliated with your gang, and you came back, and now everybody's recognizing you as a returning hero.
Yeah, like I'm Big Bone, right? Big Bone is home, right? And so the people that I don't know, oh man, I heard about you. Oh, woo woo, right? There's a glorification of who people recognize me as coming back home, and the ego, my ego didn't know really how to handle that, right? So, and on top of it, I had never really dealt with the issues that led me toward the gang in the first place. Now, and I'm gonna back that up to talk about my family. Love my family to death, right? Without my mother's unconditional love, I would not be the man that I am today. My mother stood by me when everybody else forsook me, right? So, but I remember being young and not being able to understand what it meant for my parents to be gone, right? Meaning that both of my parents, they've been married for 55 years, so I don't fit the stereotypical, broken family home or poor family or what have you. My family's a middle-class family. like I say, my parents have been married 55 years, and I've never had to want for anything in my life, except for emotional bonding. And so I did not understand that my father worked sun up to sundown, and my mother had to work all of these strange hours just to keep a roof over our head, right? In what they thought was going to be a middle-class community, a middle-class neighborhood, away from all of the things that we were having. And when the gangs came across, from LA through Watts, through Compton, and hit Linwood, it was like a big tidal wave. It was like a firestorm, and it swept a lot of us up into it that really at some point didn't even want to be involved. So I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that my parents did all of this to keep a roof over my head and food on the table. But as a young person, all I knew was that the boating trip stopped, the fishing trip stopped, that the bonding moments that I was having with my family stopped. And when these guys came to my rescue, and it was something that I didn't feel I could go back and share with my family, yet they treated me as though they really cared about what I emotionally felt, then I was locked in. I was full-fledged, after that, locked in with it. And so coming home from Youth Authority, I didn't really deal with the emotional issues of things that went on in my family, right? And so when I came back home, and there's still these other issues of family, there's this big pull back from the homies to get back in, and I'm being treated like a legend over here. Next thing you know, I'm back on the block. But I will say this also is that I went to the corporate world. I went to places to try to get a job, to try to go legit. I went to the Air Force. I wanted to join the Air Force. I even thought of myself as being a fighter pilot at one time, right? So I tried to go there, and I was rejected everywhere but the hood, right? At least that's the way I
So
felt
did that
rejected.
happen? How long were you out when you were pursuing those different options?
Oh, that was my first year home.
So when you were between 21 and 22.
Between 21 and 22. Yes. So I came home and I tried to pursue all of these different things because, I knew I wanted something different for myself, and I knew deep down inside, I knew that if I hung around the hood, I knew what that meant, because it's the same old story that we still telling y'all today, that you're going to either wind up in prison for life, or you're going to wind up dead or in a wheelchair, right? Like that hasn't changed. And so I knew that. I was being told that by older dudes, but yet everywhere that I went, I felt this rejection. And so, except for the hood, right? The hood treated me like royalty, right? The hood treated me with love. And so next thing you know, I'm back in the hood, and I'm living that life, and that's how I'm making my money, and that's how I'm living life. And then once you get into that, you get addicted to the money, right? You get addicted to the fast lane. You get addicted to the women. You get addicted to the things that come with that lifestyle. And at the age of 27 is when ultimately I ended up participating in the takeover robbery of a computer parts company.
So you were out from 21 to 26 or 27 without any problems with the law, but you were breaking the law every day.
I wouldn't say not any problems. I was beating the law, right? So most charges that I have are either possession of sales or gun charges. Like, I have a lot of gun charges, right? And I was beating the law. I was getting myself in trouble and getting caught up for these things. And yet when I was going to trial or going to court, I would beat the case. So nothing was sticking on me from, I might go, I get caught possession of a firearm. I might go 30 days in Wayside, or, go do something like that, but nothing was sticking. And yet I was still living this lifestyle. I was, I was slanging every day. And then, if a robbery came up or a lick came up, I was living that life. I was living that life. So when I was 27 is when, some of the homies came to me and they was like, look, we got this lick. And if things work out well, at a minimum, at the end of the day, your take gonna be 100 G's, right? And so, I'm doing crazy stuff for less. And so my mind was like, I'm all in. And so we went, participated in the robbery. Things did not go well at all. And I was arrested. And it's kind of like it's a little roller coaster ride, because I was arrested, and not even 40 days after I was arrested, my older brother was murdered. And so here it is. I'm sitting in the county jail. I'm facing 2 life sentences and 32 years, and my older brother is murdered. So my world, is collapsed, right? My world is collapsed. But also something very spiritual happened with my brother's murder. It's like I knew when he left. I was sitting in the cell. It was December 22nd, 1994. And I'm sitting in the cell, and this strong feeling just came over me about my brother. And I'm crying. I start crying. I'm in the cell. I'm crying. And I'm like, something's going on. I don't know what it is, but something just happened to my brother. And this is me. I'm talking to myself in the cell. Excuse me. And so my brother, I believe, came through to me before he left. And because I felt his presence. I remember sitting up all night crying. And I'm talking to myself because I'm saying, man, I'm crying, but I don't even know, like, if this is true, right? But every being in my body, everything in my body is telling me that my brother's gone, something happened. But I'm trying to convince myself otherwise. And so the next morning, I get on the phone when they turn the phones on, and I called my sister. And the first word out my sister's mouth was, "Your brother was murdered last night." And so,
what year was that, Troy?
This was 1994, December 22nd, 1994.
And is that when you went into the prison system?
I went into, it's kind of when I mentioned the roller coaster ride. Yeah. I was arrested on November 14th. Mm-hmm. December 22nd is when my brother was murdered. Mm-hmm. January 27th, my case was, I was released. The case was dismissed at preliminary hearing, right? Because the witnesses, there were like 14 witnesses who neither one could actually identify me. And so I was eventually released. After I was released, I went back to the streets. I turned my life around. I went back to school. I became a youth counselor. I started working for this program in LA called Community Build. A great woman by the name of Marva Smith, who I'll never forget. She gave me an opportunity because she seen how I was working with some of the young people at this church in Compton that I used to go to. And she hired me. She hired me as a youth counselor to work with the youth in the program that she was running.
So this is going on after you've been arrested for this robbery, but before you get convicted. Is that right?
No. So I was arrested, and I was January 27th. The charges was dismissed. 26 months later, after the charges were dismissed, they refiled the case, and I was sentenced to life in prison.
Okay, so it's during those 26 months you'd already kind of turned your life around and were trying to live as an asset to your community, but then they came after you again.
Then they came after me again. The long arm of the law, as they say, has a long memory.
And so what was your mindset when they came after you again, after you'd been doing so well in society, and they came after you again and you get charged and convicted?
Well, for me, I felt, it's over, right? To some degree, it's over, but I have to fight, right? I have to fight. I have to, I just gained custody of my oldest daughter. And so I have to fight. I became a paralegal. I started figuring out how to fight for my case, and that's after me spending all of this money on lawyers who basically ran away with my money. So I broke myself trying to pay for lawyers, who just ran away with my money. And I had to try to become a paralegal on my own, but nothing was working. I spent my first 10 years in a whole lot of pain, man. A whole lot of pain, right? Because, the woman I was with, she left, she ran away from the gate. I had my daughter to worry about, my other kids to worry about. And here it is that, I'm out of sight, out of mind. I'm dead to the world, except for my mama, right? And I'm trying to figure a way how to, get back.
Were you in a high security yard?
Yes, I started off in Lancaster, level 4.
So you start off at a level 4, you got a life sentence. You're going through some challenges during the first 10 years. What is it that gets you moving in the direction that leads you to become the success that you are now?
But, there was a bunch of little things along the way, right? But the biggest thing that I always talk about with people is that a riot happened. And so I ended up getting put in a hole, in solitary confinement. Or basically, I was in ISASEG for people who know the difference. I received a shoe term, but I did my shoe term in administrative segregation, right? And for a prison riot that happened, I got accused of doing something that I did not do. But, I know that I was a force on the yard, and people dropped the kite, and they said that I was involved and did something and stabbed this guy, and that I went to solitary confinement. So here it is that I'm in prison I already have a juvenile murder for violence. I'm in prison for violence. My whole history has been violence. And now I'm in the prison of the prison for violence. And so for me, it's over. Like I'm never coming home. Like that is the moment when I nearly lost hope. And I thought I was going crazy because I would be in the hole, and I thought I was hearing people call my name, and I would call out, and the homies would be like, man, ain't nobody call you. So I'm in there I really think I need to escape. I need to I know I couldn't physically escape, but I need to mentally escape. And I'm not the person that wants to be high on the tier or wants to be drunk on the tier. Even though I done had my fair share of activity, right? But that just didn't settle with my spirit. Just because once you get high or smoke some weed or drink some Pruno or whatever, when the high go down, I'm still behind bars. And so that's not changing. That's not helping me cope with my situation. So I started meditating, and meditation, it took me to a whole nother level. The first 30 days of my meditation, I tell people I started meditating for all the wrong reasons. I started writing down a list of everybody whose fault it was that I was in my situation. And so I blamed everybody, right? I would sit down and I would watch my mental movie and bring up all these names and moments that happened with people throughout my life and watch it and replay it in my mind as though it was a movie. And so I blamed my mama, I blamed my daddy, right? It was the teacher's fault because they didn't tell me the truth about the history of me and my people. It was the police fault. It was the system's fault. It was that dude's fault because had dude not said what he said, he wouldn't have been busted in the mouth, right? So I was blaming everybody. And on some level, there is enough responsibility to go around. But after 30 days, I ran out of names of people to blame. And so I'm like, somebody's missing from this list. And so I had all of these names written on the top part of this paper, of a sheet of paper. And I said to myself, I'm going to start over. So I had all these names written at the top, and 3 days go by. I couldn't figure out any more names. So I drew a line that separated the top half from the bottom half. of the paper. And I said, I'm going to start over. And when I went and I sat down to meditate, my name popped up. And when my name popped up, it was like, man, something that can't be right. But something kept telling me, just get up and write your name down. So I got up, I went over, I wrote my name down. I looked at the sheet of paper. I had all these names on top. I had a line through the middle, and I had my name on the bottom. And it was like a mathematical equation, and I was the common denominator. So for the first time in my life, I really had to take a look at that. Even if everybody else is 99% wrong, everybody else did everything is true. They did me wrong. They did all. What's my 1%? What's my accountability in all of these situations that I've been through? Because I'm the one that's been through them. And so I had that empowered me. That empowered me in such a way that I realized that all the while that I had been blaming community and blaming society and blaming everybody else, I actually was giving my power away, right? Because I allowed these things to happen. I allowed my mind to perceive these things the way that I perceived them. Like, that is my power, right? And when I realized that, everything changed for me. Like, everything, like, it wasn't like this overnight change, but that was a significant turning point for me. And my prison became like, it wasn't this uphill dreaded battle anymore, right? I still had to struggle for freedom, but I had this overwhelming feeling of empowerment that I knew I could figure it out now. I knew that the power was mine to figure out and not somebody else to control. And so that helped me.
So how does that influence your adjustment as you continue moving through this life sentence?
Well, I ultimately transferred to San Quentin, where there was all of these opportunities.
Were you in your 10th year when that happened?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was in my 10th year, and came right out the shoe, our ASEG, and transferred to San Quentin. And I'm like, man, they got camera equipment and TV stuff here. Like, I'm fixing to make a movie from this yard. And Discovery Channel came in. I got selected to be a part of this San Quentin Film School with Discovery Channel. And just my attitude toward police, my attitude toward other people, and involved in programs and all this other stuff, my attitude towards people changed because I didn't want to give my power away by allowing somebody to control me with their emotions or with what they were going through. And then I started learning how to build relationships, different relationships with people who I normally wouldn't build relationships with, right? I no longer could look at, one group of people and just demonize them completely when I know that we're all like individuals. Because one of the other things I learned from meditation is that on some level, we're all connected. Like, we're all connected in this world. Like, every cell in my body is connected. Every living force in this universe is connected. And so knowing that, it changed the way that I built relationships with people. I just started to take advantages of opportunities that were right before me.
And what opportunities worked for you in helping you turn that life sentence into something that you could overcome and come back to society as a successful man? Well,
the biggest thing for me there are a couple of things, right? One, I started getting involved in certain groups, and really, at first I was just looking for language to take into the boardroom. But the deep work that I started doing on myself to really like fully understand my emotions and my emotional state took me to another level. I started acting in Shakespeare, doing some stuff there. I started filming on the yard and learning how to film. And I got permission to actually start up an organization inside. And learning how to do that, learning how to communicate with people on different levels, right? Because I had to learn how to communicate with the administration. I had to learn how to communicate with other, guys on the yard differently, right? I had to learn how to communicate with free people, and then all the whole variety of, mixes and mesh that can take. So just being involved in all of these different things, like, allowed me to really understand me more. We started, one of the things too was a book club. We started a book club inside, where we started writing, sharing our stories in a thing called Brothers in Pen. And we would all write these stories and have these stories published. We would do one a year. And so all of that, just the exploration of writing, the exploration of communication, the exploration of myself and my own emotional state, knowing the history, my true history, the history of myself and my people, and knowing that I get to choose what identity and how I want to walk through life. That's my choice. I don't have to believe the stories of what people say of how successful I can be in life. It's not up to them. My success is not up to anyone but myself, right? And that which I think about the most and that which I contemplate the most is that which I draw into my life. And so I kept my meditation practice up. I kept my goals. I wrote down my goals. I have developed me parole plans, which helped me build a support system around myself, which even helped me further understand my emotional state and me have a direction of where I wanted to go to when I came home. And so all the things that I developed, the tools that I developed inside, even the tools that, there's a lot of things that happen on prison yards that the free world never get to know. A lot of negotiations that we do, a lot of the talks that we do to try to keep peace on the yard, right? How many yards have we been on where, there's a handful of dudes that's running around playing peacekeeper all the time on the yard, right? We have negotiation skills, man, that people use every day in the boardroom, right? But we don't understand how to take those skills and understand that these are transferable skills. The same tools that I use to hustle with on the block and to build a team with each other on the block are the same tools that I use in the boardroom, right? And without the violence, minus the violence, because violence is never good, right? Violence is never good. And so minus the violence, minus all of these negative things, the tools that I've learned how to transfer these tools into what is making my life a success right now.
Tell us about that success that it is right now. What does it look like?
Well, I'm pausing because there's so much that I'm involved in right now. I'm like, where do I start? For one, I am working at the College of Chabot. We work with an organization called RISE, and I am the coordinator of the RISE program. And what we do is people who are coming home from prison or jail, we help them navigate the college system. So we create a whole big support system around them that helps them get into college and navigate all the issues that are going to come up around being in college, around being home and reintegrating back into society. We just create a network of support for them to help them get through school to get to the degree and the career that they want for themselves. That's one thing. I am on several boards of nonprofit organizations. I work with the district attorney in San Francisco as an advisor on the advisory board. I am on the Oakland Safety and Services Oversight Commission. We've been having these barbershops with formerly incarcerated people and police departments around the Bay Area. And the reason for us doing that is because, I think there are certain Black officers in the community who know that things aren't right, and they want to know what they can do, to make things better, right? And I know that brings up a whole can of stuff for people, and we've had some really heated arguments. We've had some heated conversations in there, and yet we are to a point where we are starting to try to build something for our community, because now is the time for us to come together in our community on all levels, because we got to save our young people. I'm going inside juvenile halls, working with young people in different juvenile halls. I created some programs to help them try to navigate some of the emotional stuff that they may be going through at a young age, and just provide space for them to listen, to be listened to. I mean, because, you know, it's not just about me going in there talking, but it's actually hearing them and them sharing what it is that they going through, and knowing that they have the ability to come up with solutions. Just given the right set of tools, they're going to find their own solutions, because, you know, we're human. We're built like, we are built like that.
Well, we've come to the end of this episode, but I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story, Troy, because I know that you can inspire guys inside. And I want to do one quick takeaway of what I learned from Troy. And I hope that you who are listening to this, that are either going into prison or in prison, find that same takeaway, is that he went into prison and he didn't ever discount the decisions that he made that led him into segregated housing. But what he talks about is, while he went in there after that 10th year, he reflected, he thought about how he got in there, and he recognized that he couldn't blame anybody without blaming himself as well. And because of that mindset, it resulted in him going to a better prison, San Quentin, where he could participate in programs, change his mindset, develop skills, eventually get himself out of prison. After how many years did you ultimately serve?
18.
Pardon?
18 years.
Whereas he could have been serving life. He got out after 18 years, and listen to all the amazing accomplishments that he has been doing right now. Whereas we've been working with prosecuting attorneys, law enforcement, helping with juveniles, doing everything he possibly can to apply the skills he learned in prison to live a life of success and meaning and relevance as a contributing citizen out here in society. I'm so glad to call him a friend and so inspired to know him. But as I said, we've come to the end of this episode, Troy, and I'd love for you to give the last word to our audience.
Absolutely. I just want to encourage y'all, man, that you can do it. You can do whatever you choose to put your mind to, that power is yours. And I just want to say also to my children and to all the people that I've hurt along the way, that I am deeply, I deeply apologize for all the wrong that I did. I'm sorry, and that I am doing what is within my power to do to make this world a better place. And I mean that from my heart.
Congratulations to everything that you do. You're an inspiration and a role model to us all. I am Michael with Prison Professors. If you'd like to learn more about our programs, visit prisonprofessors.com or simply text the word Prison Pro to 44222 on behalf of my two partners, Sean Hopwood and Justin Paperny. We thank you for listening and hope that you will subscribe, rate, and review the show on iTunes. We'll be back tomorrow with another inspiring guest. Thank you, Troy Williams. You are a superstar, and we're so glad to have you as a part of our program.
Thank you, Mike.